your cowboy pal, old Jack Spade. Leather's strong, leather's true. He's got a howdy just for you. Howdy, you two parts. Howdy, you two.
Howdy, you two parts. Jack Spade back here with you, High Noon Leather Works, for another leather adventure. And today, I'm going to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and that is to make something that I can put in my truck, hang over the headrest, over the back of the front seats, one on the passenger side, one on the driver's side, and then I can use it as a holder for pews, all kinds of stuff, but mainly for long rifles and such, that they'll go across both seats in the back. So I've got one made. I'm getting ready to make the other one, so I thought I'd bring you along to show you how I did it. It's made out of heavy canvas, some leather, and some leather lace, and a wooden dowel rod. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I did was I cut out my material, or my canvas material, and I cut it two matching pieces to the same size, and they ended up being 16 inches wide, and this is the rough cut, 16 inches wide by approximately, let's see, I'll go approximately 6 feet, maybe just a little shy of that. So 16 inches by about 6 feet in length. Now you could make this as long as you want. I wanted at least 2 pouches on each one. You'll put either the butt stock or the barrel in one or the other. You could switch them from side to side, whatever. You notice I did have a flap left down here on the bottom, so I could either cut that off or maybe put a smaller hem in it and be able to put something in there, but I just wanted to leave that hang down and cover down almost to the floor or the floorboard. So I wanted 2 pockets in there. So what I'm going to do is I fold it over each side, and I put a hem in at about 5/8. I'm going to say, let me double check it, right at about 5/8 of an inch. And that's how wide my presser foot is on this Brother machine. So I just folded it over to get started and made it right at the same width as my presser foot, maybe just a hair wider. And then I just kept that consistent all the way around. Make sure I don't knock over the camera here. So I just kept that consistent as I went around the outside and put that hem in. I wanted it to look nice. I'm sure you could leave it rough cut, but I'd rather it be more professional looking. Because if this works out, which I think it will, I'll probably just leave them hanging in my truck, and then they'll be there every time I want to use them for something. Obviously, you could use them for more than just rifles and such. So, back that stitch up, lock it in. And I'll show you that what it turns out to be if I follow that method, and it makes me a nice straight hem. And there's the back side. Now all I have to do is continue on all the way around and do the same thing. And what I'll do is I'll do a long side next. Then I'll go ahead and tuck that over, and I'll actually stitch the next one onto what hem I just stitched. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Same width. I'll go by my presser foot again. The width of my presser foot. And I'll fold that over. Lock that in with about 3 or 4 stitches. And I'm going through 4 thicknesses of that heavy canvas right now. Now I get back to my regular hem with 2 thicknesses. And the longer, the 6 foot length obviously takes quite a bit longer to hem than the 16-inch. You can tell I'm not using any tape or glue or cement or anything like that. I'm just folding it over as I go. And keeping it the width of that presser foot, as using that as my guide. So I'll stop every once in a while and make sure I fold that over. Keep that consistent. Make sure that I'm still only on that hem part. And then when you have a piece of material this long, it's just a matter of trying to concentrate as much as possible so that you don't make a mistake and end up having to tear that hem out. Because it is so long. Alright, as we get down here to the end, back it up and lock it in, and then cut those threads off. Alright, so now I've got a long side finished and a short side finished, and you can see how I did it overlapping those. So I'll trim that extra thread off. I'll go ahead and put my other long and short hem in, and then I'll be right back. Alright, then I have a leather reinforcement up at the top where the dowel goes through, and I made that 5 by 7 inches, and let's go ahead and make sure that I have plenty here, and it looks like I do. I'll go ahead and trim this straight using my grid. Then I can square it up. Let's double check and make sure that I have make sure we're about right there so that I have enough length. So I'll square that side up with the top. Now I can come down or over 5 inches, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring me to the 9-inch mark. And then I'll flip it around and we'll do the 7-inch length, which would make it 13-inch mark. These self-healing cutting mats with the 1-inch grids make life so easy. Makes cutting quick, simple. Now I've got my rectangle that I'm going to put on my canvas, and I'll show you on this one what it ended up looking like, and that's support that center. And this is not super thick, maybe 2 or 3 ounce, but it's just enough, makes it a real nice color contrast between the canvas and the leather. Supports that center of that dowel, and the dowels I'm using are just dowels I bought in the craft area at Walmart, and you got 3 pieces for under $3, and they were 3/4 of an inch in diameter and 12 inches long. So that worked out really well. So they're going to be plenty strong enough. So what I did was I put this right in the center and I folded it over, and I think I made it 4 inches. Yeah. So I folded it over 4 inches, and then I put this patch or this leather support right in the middle. So let's do that, because I'll have to sew that on before I sew it folded over. So what I'll have to do is let's use our grid again. Let's fold it over approximately 4 inches. We'll find the center of this, which is going to be right at 7.5 inches. And then this is 7 inches. So 3.5 would be my center of 7. I'll just make me a little reference mark on the inside of that so it'll be covered up. Then half of my 5 would be 2.5. So we'll go mark that 2.5 down from the fold. And then we'll mark it, open it up, and mark it at 5 inches. And the reason why I'm marking this is because I don't want this to move while I'm stitching it in. So I'm going to use some of this two-sided stitching tape. And this works really, really well. I used it on the other side also. It's super sticky. And I normally use contact cement. But in this case, I used this two-sided tape, stitching tape, and it worked really well. So, and I'm just cutting it because I don't need it that thick or that wide. So I'm going to cut it. Put it right on those marks, right out to the edge. Take the other piece, do the same thing. And then while I have the tape still on there, I could double check and make sure that's going to work, which it looks perfect. And then I can push that down into that canvas. I just use my thumbs, push that down in there, take my knife or a sharp pointed object of some kind, and I can peel that backing off of there. And the adhesive stays on the canvas. Now I can go back, use my marks, side to side, and up and down. And put my leather on top of that. And what that'll do is that'll hold that nice and steady so it doesn't move as I put my stitching in. And I'll stitch that all the way around on the machine. Let me throw it back up there. And I'll use the term throw loosely. And then I'll start on this side over here. Since it's going to be one continuous stitch, I will have to maneuver this around a little bit. I am using the inside of my presser foot opening as my guide to where I'm putting my stitch, so I may go a little slower. Still lock it in. Because I want to keep an eye on that opening in my presser foot that I'm using as a guide for my stitch. So the slower I go, the more accurate I think I can be with that. So once I get down toward the end here, I'll leave my needle down, open or lift my presser foot. I'll spin it and continue down the next side. When I get to the end or close to the end where I know I'm going to put my next run down the other side, I'll do the same thing. I'll leave my needle in. I'll pull that around 90 degrees. Put my presser foot back down and continue. Then when I get to the end, I'll also lock that. Trim that excess thread off. And then there's my leather support, my strengthener there. Now I can go ahead and fold this over. I want it to match the other one I'd already made, and I folded it over at 4 inches. So I'll fold it over at 4 inches, like so. And that's where we'll start putting that stitch in there. So I'll put this excess up here on the workbench. And then what I'll do is I'll follow the outside of the presser foot with the other hem stitch that's in there. So let me get this other end at 4 inches so I can hold on to it. It's easy to follow when you have another stitch to follow. One of these days, I hope, be able to afford a real nice heavy duty machine, stitching machine. And, but you know what? I am super impressed with this little Brother machine with heavy duty needles in it. It's inexpensive, but it does a really good job. Now, it's not going to do heavy, thick leather or anything, but on this lighter weight stuff and this canvas, it does a really nice job. So there's my hem at 4 inches. So now I need to do a couple of grommets in there. So let me get this out of the way. Here's my dowel that I'm going to use. I've got my strengthening leather on here. It's going to make that a lot stiffer, tougher. Just strengthen that up, especially there in the center. Then I'm going to mark where I want my grommets to be. And what I'm putting grommets in here for is I want to put a long piece of lace in there, and that's what will actually hang over the headrest, is that lace. So I'll take that dowel back out. Let's get my poly cutting board here. Get my punch for my grommets. And make my holes. going to use silver grommets. So I'll grab 2 of those. And then instead of using my regular setter, since this isn't leather and these will probably pull from this side, especially if I don't, what I'll do, and I've done this before, it works really well, is I'll put my small grommet through there. I'll put it from the front to the back. Put it on my anvil, and then I take a decent size Phillips screwdriver, and I'll tap on that and split that grommet into 4 sections, and I'll show you what that looks like as soon as I fold that over. Then I fold those 4 sections over, looks like I need to hit that just a little bit. There we go. And what that does is that allows a bigger bite on the back of that grommet, and it gets a hold of that. And it really gets a hold of that canvas or that material. So I get a nice grommet on the front and a nice grip on the back. So I'll do the same thing. On the other side. Make sure that that canvas is all the way down over that grommet. I'll split it with that Phillips screwdriver. Push over all 4 tabs. And then hit that flat so it really gets a good bite on there. So there is the top part with my grommets. I'll put in my 3/4 dowel, and that's what's going to hold all the weight, is those grommets. And let me grab a piece of lace here. Got a nice long piece of black lace as I'm leaning over the camera. Apologize about that. Then I'll stick one end through one side, the other end through the other grommet. And I can cut that off or leave it on there and tie it however you want to do it. But this is the end that'll go over the loop that'll go over your headrest. And that's what will hold this up on the back of the seat. So the next thing we're ready to do is go ahead and do the loops or the pockets that's going to actually hold the rifles or whatever it is you're going to put in there. So let me grab the other one and we'll measure it, because I want them to be the same. So here's the one that was complete, and what I did was just take this material, pull it up here, and then stitched across. Let me see how much material I pulled up. Approximately, it looks like 8 inches. 7 to 8 inches. So let's go 8 inches, approximately 8-inch fold here. And let's double check it before I get started. That's right at 8 inches. And we'll go right underneath where the hem is on the part that holds the dowel. That'll go on the seat. So we're going through 4 thicknesses to get started here. Let's see if we have any trouble. And we'll lock it in. And then we'll double check the other side. See what kind of measurement we have there. Kind of like the hem. Once I get the measurement, I'll just hold on to it so it can't move. And again, I'm going by how far away I am from this other stitch. That's what I'm judging, how straight I'm making this stitch across there. So we get across, pull this out. That's another thing. If I can ever get to the point where I can afford a nice heavy-duty machine, I want a nice big workspace, work table with nothing else on it but my sewing stuff, my stitching stuff. So I know I'm hoping for a lot, but it would be nice. So there's my first pocket right there. And that, again, we wanted it to be right at 8 inches. And it is right at 8 inches to that stitch. So we want to do that again. And it looks like it has about 2 inches of space between these pouches. So we want to come up and go 8 inches again, but we want about 2 inches of space between those pouches. So let's, and it doesn't have to be perfectly exact. It can be. So let's measure it again. I want approximately 8 inches. And we're right there. So I'm going to fold this over. And that'll be the start of my stitch. And then I can double check that again. Make sure I'm right at 8 inches. And I can turn this and start. Now, here's where it's going to be a little more difficult, because I did not have anything on the other side to go by. So, as far as a stitch. So what I can do, let's do this. Let's fold this over and let's measure 8 inches. And let's just take a Sharpie, since it's going to be on the underneath side, and I'll put a mark about every 3 inches or so. At 8 inches. Come down here, do the same thing. And what that'll do is that'll give me a guide to shoot for, or a dot every 3 inches or so as a guide to stitch to. So I'll start right on that spot. And then I'll stitch to the next dot. And it's easy with the light on here to just keep continuing aiming for that dot or that mark. So you don't really have to have a line. You could actually just use the dots like I just did, and it works really well. As long as you have a line of sight that you can follow. All right, we'll cut that off. Trim those off. Okay, so there's the second pouch. There's the first one. There's the second one. They're both right at 8 inches. Then we got this little flap on the bottom that'll continue on down toward the floorboard of the vehicle. So I've got a set of 2 now. One for the passenger side, one for the driver's side. So we should be good to go. All right, so we have a set, one for each side now. Got our dowels in. We've got our lace to go around our headrest for both sides. We've got our pockets to place one end of our rifle or anything else you want to slide in there. You could carry. This will hang down to the floorboard. So going to be a handy little addition to the pickup truck. So appreciate you coming along. Appreciate you watching. Come back, check out next week's video. We'll be doing something totally different. So like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
Now like old Jack Spade will say, don't forget before you ride away. Like, share, subscribe, keep the trail alive. I'll see you in the next one, parts. Till then, keep riding hard.